Yeah, we ready? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, guys. Welcome to the first official episode of Word on the Street. Alhamdulillah. It's been a long
Alhamdulillah.
time coming, and I'm joined today by a wonderful guest. Inshallah, I'm going to let him introduce himself. So take away, Sheikh.
Okay, so my name is Abdullah Yazmalani. I don't know what to say because there's so much that I'm involved in at the moment. I am the dean at mishkainstitute.ca. We run our own online classes. I'm an instructor at Khair Ulama Islamic Institute. Well, that's not what they call themselves. Khair Ulama Academy, sorry. Mathaba Institute, and I'm studying psychology at Queen's University in Canada.
So you've got a plate full of stuff on your list right now, subhanAllah. How do you manage your time in that sense as well? Because I know, like, subhanAllah, you get really, really busy with things at times. So how do you manage your time?
I don't. I really don't. What I do is I'm always working on improving, but recently I don't think it's one of my good days, to be honest.
Yeah. Today,
and it's because of what we're talking about today, which is...
Today is the first day of the podcast, and alhamdulillah, I was a bit late, so I apologize in that sense, but yeah.
No, what I'm saying is we're talking... That's not what I'm saying.
Oh, you're not talking about...
The reason why I've been a little bit off my schedules is because of my social media addiction. And that's what the topic of today's podcast is to talk about technology and social media addictions.
Yeah.
Specifically because we're both social media people.
Social media addicts at the moment, inshallah. We can...
Addicts, yeah. I think Corona kind of made it really worse.
So I've got a question for you. What do you think? Because for me personally, it's always been a sense of, I know I can take a break from social media and I know I can go away, but I don't know what, it's like a drug in a sense. It just brings me back every single time.
Well, you see, there's a lot of research on this. Like, they make sure you can take a break. Like, I'll tell you what happened with me, right? With Facebook, I got this place where I was booming, okay? So my page I was getting about like 100 friend requests a day, crazy. Then I got married. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a break. I took a break, and that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
My page has not healed back since then. So let's say before the break, I was getting maybe 50 to 100 likes per post.
Yeah.
After that break, now I get like literally 2 to like 5 likes a post.
Is
like,
this on Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook. Like, they will kill you.
Yeah.
And their algorithm is meant to do that. You're not allowed to take a break, or they'll make you pay for it. That's pretty much.
Because I can honestly say, whenever I have deactivated from Twitter and I've come back, it's always been a sense of, I feel as if my tweets aren't reaching out to the same amount of people they were previously before I deactivated. So I think they definitely want you to stay. It is in a sense like an addiction, I would say, but.
Well, the thing is, it's what they're using is they're using your dopamine, right? Like, they want to give you that dopamine boost little by little by every like, every notification. Yeah. And these things, they add up, and it's really, really bad for the nafs, right? Like your soul. Yeah. And I think there's a very big difference between this modern day social media type technologies versus traditional technologies. Yeah. So for example, you know, if you look at a person who's using tools, like hand tools, traditional technology, you know, every tool has a purpose. The hammer has a very different purpose than a screwdriver. And the person only uses them when they need them. So a person has like 20 different types of screwdrivers, but they're only going to use the specific one. And that's how you have these beautiful things happening. The problem with social media is it is an attention economy. So the more of your attention they can grab, the more money they make. And they will try their best to keep that. And what we have to do is we have to channel social media into a positive direction. And in order to do that, we're going to have to treat it more like traditional equipment. Yeah. And you see, in our culture, we have this mindset that more is better. Yeah. Right? And we all have a sense of FOMO. So for example, if you're on Twitter, and you know, I run an organization, so my organization is on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Now we've been thinking about closing Facebook, but do you think we're not going to do that because we're like, oh, we have this potential thing that's there.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, it's just like the FOMO will kill you.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So we have this mentality in this culture right now that more is better. So in the information age, more information is better. More, like, like, for example, what does Will Smith's life have to do anything with my faith or myself? But we're also invested in it, and I need to know about this, right? So it's like, it's targeted at us, and at this idea where we all feel like we don't know enough, or we are not in the loop enough, or we are not in the group enough. And Islam, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. And especially if you look at our scholars in the initial years, they were the exact opposite. If you're looking at the scholars of the past, they worked on few things, but they put their all into it. If you look at Imam Bukhari, before writing every hadith, he's taking a whole bath, and he's praying 2 rakat salah, and he's writing it. If it was you and I, people of today, we'd be like, in that time, I could have read this other book, or I could have done this. So you see, we're losing on this idea of quantity versus quality. And social media like really dilutes you down on that.
Yeah. Do you necessarily think that it's impossible to have that balance? Because I feel as if it could either go two ways. You can be someone who has the pure intentions, the right mentality, and you stay firm on that. But then again, it's a question of, your iman is always going to fluctuate because you're seeing certain things that you shouldn't, and it becomes really difficult to block out those things, because especially with Twitter, for example, one person's retweet it's opening up everything to you and to all their followers, and you can refrain from it, you can block out certain individuals, but it's always going to be a matter of when would it happen again, because you never know what people change and people.
I was very much pro social media like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And in theory, I was speaking to Sheikh Yusuf Badat, he's a very well-known scholar in Canada. And he told me this example. And like I said, in theory, it sounds really, really nice. And I really respect him, really like the example as well. That when Prophet ﷺ went to give da'wah, when he was told to give da'wah openly, they had a system of mass communication, which was that when a person had a very important news, he would go on top of a mountain, take off his clothes, and start waving it in the air. The Prophet ﷺ used that, but he removed the evil from it. He didn't take off his clothes. He took on an extra pair of clothes and started waving that. So in theory, yes, but after 5 years of being muddled into it, I personally think, and you can disagree with me on this, I don't think anyone, I think everyone is better off of social media, unless they're like a full-time da'i who's just there to help the people who are already on there. And that's what I'm hoping to be. But honestly speaking, even in my life, the harms outweigh the benefit. And you can ask my wife about that. But
I remember recently I saw because obviously you answer back a lot on Curious Cat.
Yeah.
You respond back to people and their queries in regards to Islam or any questions that they have. So I saw like a sister must have messaged you in regards to like a second marriage or something. And I was just
here's the thing, right? It's probably just people trolling.
Yeah.
You do get serious inquiries
yeah.
of people trying to ask you, because especially like when you get a little bit of clout, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I think for me, when I hit the 1,000 followers, it's like when you started getting people interested in you.
Yeah.
So since then, a lot of positive stuff has happened. Like I got to meet you. I've been asked to, like, for example, when I was stuck in Pakistan for a bit, and when other Pakistanis were tweeting at the government, they were not getting responses. But when I was. Or I had like media reach out to me. But at the same time, and I'm sure you know more about this than I do, girls do reach out to you, right? And I've had a couple, not too many, alhamdulillah, weird incidents with this. And I've tried to like be very firm, and I put my stance on second marriages and all that very clearly. I'm not doing it to make sure that there's no fitna in it for me, because I'm a human being, right? And honestly, like I don't think any guy should put themselves in that place where they don't, take boundaries for themselves, or you'll lose yourself.
Without doubt.
How have you been? Because see, you're not when you have a sheikh, people still have that boundary, right?
Yeah.
You're just a guy with a good lineup and good clothes. Okay.
But in that sense, I can't lie. I can say that. Of course, I've had people who have messaged me in regards to marriage, seeing their parents and so on. But for me, I don't personally. For me, I don't think I could, marry someone from social media. I don't question anyone who does, but that's just my preference kind of thing.
But is it only marriage for you, or are also people reaching out to you for like just to hang out or whatever?
If it was with the opposite gender, I don't think I would in general. But if it's like,
No, I'm saying that you wouldn't, but are people asking you to?
no, I think in that sense, you'd be surprised. I think people are very respectful in that regard.
That's amazing, mashallah.
Yeah, I think I did have a situation where someone said like, subhanAllah, they've been trying to get married for a good period of time, and if I was to see potential in that person, they would want it to progress. But for me,
Listen, I don't think it's fitna when it comes to marriage, right? Like,
No.
I'll be honest, I've tried something, looking into a person online,
Mhm.
didn't marry them. But what I'm saying is, I don't think it's fitna per se if it's just marriage. But I'm sure for a lot of brothers and sisters online, it's not just marriage, right? Or it's like, we're going to be having a talking phase to see if it will progress into marriage.
Definitely.
And I don't know. I think that's...
In that sense, do you think, like, because I know for a lot of brothers and sisters, it's always been like, they're going to talk briefly, not have any form of physical interaction, and just decide from there through a few conversations online that this is the person I want to marry. Do you think, in a sense, that is the right thing to do?
So I set times twice a day, where people can call me and talk to me about their stuff, right? And from that, I'm getting more and more set on my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, let's say a guy and a girl are looking to get married and they're in the talking phase, right?
Yeah.
If they're in the talking phase, I don't think texting is the best way to get to know someone.
Without doubt, yeah.
For a couple of reasons. First thing is there's so much room for miscommunication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, when I was engaged, before I got married, my soon-to-be wife sent food to my house.
Yeah.
So I was communicating via my mom. Like, we didn't have a formal communication channel. So I said, oh, wow, this biryani, or I think it was nihari. No, it was biryani. This biryani is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Is there something wrong with that statement?
No, nothing.
It's only after I got married, I found out the whole thing. Why did he say the word actually? And my sister-in-law actually got me a mug when I got married, and he says, he's actually pretty good. But I'm saying that there's so much room for miscommunication because we all present our best selves online. And I think via text, you even dilute it further because, you can just represent one side of you. So if someone does really want to talk, I really think phone calls or Skype calls, ideally with a mahram. I'm not talking Islamically here, by the way. I'm saying practically.
In general,
phone calls or Skype calls are best, especially because you can end them, right? If you're texting, you're going to be texting consistently for the 3 months. But if you have said, okay, we're going to do phone calls, it's an hour, and that's it. It's not a 3 a.m. Feeling weak moment, right? It's a text. I mean, it's a phone call.
Yeah, of course.
I think you can set boundaries better with phone calls as well.
Without a doubt. And for me, it's always been a sense of, I feel as if you could never truly know a person and their intentions. I think for people, that's a really concerning factor in the sense that, for example, if I was to start talking to someone and within a month's time, I was married to this individual, but because I didn't spend enough time with that person, I didn't see a particular side of that individual. For example, if that person had like a short temper or aggressive side that I wasn't aware of, and maybe it's just put me off that person in a sense. How do you think like someone could overcome that?
I think for that, the biggest thing is doing your research.
Yeah.
For me, I personally would not marry someone who I don't have a mutual contact that can vouch for them.
Yeah.
For example, when I married my wife, may Allah reward her, may Allah bless her. The reason why I would say yes is because I spoke to her teacher.
Yeah.
Her teacher I don't want to quote it because I don't want to like put that out there. But he gave a really good review of her, and he said he knows her and her entire family and her siblings for like all this time. So you need that one person who knows them well, who can vouch for them. I personally wouldn't go forward until I have at least that, because I think even in that 1 month, which Islamically I can't push. But the thing is, you're still not gonna get to know them.
I feel like a person has so much for you to be able to completely know them.
But on social media, it's worse, because I know myself, right? I know people look at me on social media and they're like, oh, this guy is like the biggest sheikh in the whole world, right? People message me and they're like, oh, you're so much better than the sheikhs in our country. It's all garbage, okay? I look at myself, I know what I am in reality, and that's why I can look at everybody else and be like, okay, everyone or almost everyone is not, and it's not like they're trying to be fake. It's just that you can't see their full side. Like, a good example of this is, for example, my cat, right? I got a cat recently.
Chino.
And I've been posting stuff like, he came when I call him and stuff like that. But a lot of times I call him and he doesn't come. Or like, I generally post videos when I'm like playing with him, when he's in a playful mood, but when he's not. So what I'm saying is real life isn't as photoshopped as online. And that's why I think we should go into what we want to talk about is the harms of social media and how can you minimize them practically. So go on.
I think do you want to start your story, because inshallah, no.
Okay, we'll do my story, then we'll do your story.
Okay.
So for me, I have really struggled with social media. I've read like 1 million books on it, and I've had really good times, and right now I'm going through some really bad times with social media. So for example, I was reading a book called Digital Minimalism, and he gives you a challenge to go onto like a non-smartphone for I think like 2 months or something. So I went on a BlackBerry. So pretty much the goal is you leave your smartphone at home so you can still do stuff. Well, actually, according to him, you can, but that's what I was doing. My smartphone would stay at home, and I would spend my day with my BlackBerry. And honestly, I really enjoyed it. Oh, I think it improved my marriage, it improved me as a teacher, everything improved. But here we are now.
What would you say?
Social media, like.
What would you say was the factor that pushed you back and like made you want to leave the BlackBerry and go, maybe one tweet?
BlackBerry stopped working. That was the factor.
Okay, that makes sense.
But not just that. I think I came to a point where I thought I was good, right? So I was using certain, and I'll talk about those apps. I was using certain methods to keep social media at bay. And then I got stuck in Pakistan. I had nothing to do. So I was just on social media all the time. But go on.
That being said as well, I feel like your ability to use social media, I think this is where the positives come in. You have been able to help various different individuals, whether it's with dawah or just giving knowledge in certain aspects of Islam. And sometimes I feel like the positivity does tend to outweigh the negative aspect of social media. And I've seen that physically myself. I've seen, subhanAllah, like you would commit time to replying back to curious cat messages in regards to Islam, and just, answering back people's concerns and any queries that they may have as well.
I totally see that, right? So that's why I think scholars should be available on social media who tend to people who are already on there. But at the same time, I'm not an advocate for social media for people who are not on there. You know what I'm saying? That's the balance, I think. Like I totally see it. Alhamdulillah, right now on Curious Cat, we're like 30 to 40 to 50 questions a day. And I think that's a very important service. And the reason why I take phone calls is because I don't believe in like texting forever. Right? I think what I can accomplish in a 30-minute phone call, you and I can't do with texting for a month.
I remember when I had my query in regards to something, and you were like straight away, no, don't text me, call me, inshallah, we'll sort this out. I was like, okay. I was really nervous because I'm really uncomfortable on the phone sometimes. But
people hate me for it. People, like, the amount of answers I've given, book a phone call, it's like a 10% that actually books that phone call.
Honestly. But no, alhamdulillah, like it was really smooth. So you just like you managed to give me the guidance that I kind of needed. And I highly respect you in the sense that you're actually coming out your way to dedicate time for people, and there's been situations where I've been so confused in regards to something about Islam or certain hadiths or so on and so on. And alhamdulillah, like I've had you available there, and you've been like my first line of contact.
Jazakallah.
Yeah, and honestly, like the way you've been able to swiftly respond back and everything, I sincerely appreciate it. And like you said, I feel like a lot more scholars should have that service.
For sure. And I do believe that scholars should be on social media just so we can interact with. And that's where I think has been my main thing.
Mm-hmm.
My main thing is that scholars should be accessible.
Yeah.
And that's not to attack scholars. I think, especially in Toronto, scholars are super busy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they get valued as much as they should.
Yeah.
I think every single scholar in Toronto is working like 3 jobs, and I'm sure it's very similar in like the UK.
Yeah.
But I do think people should have access to scholars, that scholars should be available to speak to. And I think this was something that used to exist when we were younger. When we were younger, we could go to a mosque and just talk to the imam.
Yeah.
And I think now, I'm going to take a little bit of jab at masjid boards, because you know that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now masjid boards feel like imams need to be engaged in something all the time to get their money's worth, kind of thing. So it's like if you come for an imam, they'll hire you for X circle and X class and X salah. But if you are just there available for people, like office hours, they don't consider that to be work. So they feel like that shouldn't be part of the hours they've committed you for.
Yeah, makes sense.
And that's concerning, because people need someone there that they can connect themselves to.
Confide in and speak to, without a doubt.
Okay, so that's why I think we can kind of like, well, first of all, you didn't tell your story of social media. How come you're on social media, and what is your philosophy, and how do you protect yourself?
Me, I think I for the main platform that I do use is probably Twitter. In all honesty, I started, that's about five years ago. So I joined when I was around 17 years old. As a kid, teenager, I was, making them silly tweets. To a certain extent, you can say chasing clout. And then subhanAllah, like I knew there was a void. There was something that was missing in my life. And at this stage of my life, I really did neglect Islam completely. There would be stages where my mum would have conversations with me and say, why do you not pray? Why don't you do this? Why don't you read Quran? And I was just like, I will eventually. And I just knew that would always be on the back of my head. And there was that void, there was that incompletion, like it's just a missing piece of the puzzle in my heart that I knew that I had to change. And subhanAllah, with Twitter, this is where I see the positive aspect of Twitter. I used to see constant reminders, and I don't know what it was. One day I just saw like, turn to Allah, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never stray you away. And since that day, subhanAllah, like I just feel like that was such a turning point in my life that it just made me realize how I've wasted so much time depriving myself of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His mercy. And it just, that once that point hit my life, I said, you know what, inshallah, let me use my platform that I have now to try do better, to try better myself. I feel like a lot of people who give reminders often get mistaken to be this self-proclaimed righteous individual, but
I worry about that all the time.
Yeah, because you don't want to come across as someone arrogant. I know for a fact that you.
But I make an effort for this. So, for example, recently I shared something where I said, "Oh, my wife has this. We have the inside joke where she calls me a crooked alim, right?"
Yeah.
And then someone messaged me and they're like, "Hey, take that down."
Yeah.
Because we have to respect scholars, and I respect where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But the thing with me is, the scariest thing for me is for someone to equate their Islam to my righteousness. Because I'm a sinner, like I'm not a good person.
Yeah.
I don't want someone to then later on look at my flaws and then equate them with Islam. So for me, I make an effort, because literally this is my nightmare. Mm-hmm. My nightmare is that, may Allah protect me, I'll get exposed or something, and then people will leave Islam because of me. And I honestly, like I have my own sins to worry about. I don't want to bear someone else's burden
Of course,
on my shoulder.
of course.
So
I can
I think we all
understand
need
that's
to make an effort to like make this clear. Like, hey, my flaws are my flaws. They're not. If they are in accordance to Islam, like whatever good I'm doing, that's Islam. But
Yeah.
I'm a human being. Those flaws are only me.
Exactly. I think people tend to forget. For example, you as a scholar, they just deem you to be this righteous individual who has no sins, who's pure in every aspect. And subhanAllah, they forget that at the end of the day, we are human beings. We do make mistakes like everyone else. And like we do have our flaws as well, but it's just a matter of trying to better yourself every day. And I feel like a lot of people take that misconception. And for example, if you were, God forbid, if you were to make a mistake, people would use that to crazy extent, saying that, oh, this person pretends to be this and well, this is what they're doing, kind of thing. So I can imagine how much pressure it is upon your shoulders to like constantly maintain.
And I think that's why people are always scared to like marry scholars too, right? Because a lot of times what happens is it's not just a scholar, it's also like their family, their children have a lot of pressure to now be a certain way. And it's not a good way to live. It really isn't. And that's why you see a lot of children of scholars, they end up leaving the right path because the community has just put so much pressure on them.
Without doubt.
Sorry, I wanted to say something, but it just kind of escaped my mind. Go ahead.
But alhamdulillah, I feel as if there's a lot of burden on your shoulders that people don't really necessarily see. How do you manage to form that balance, that, because I know everyone expects you to, alhamdulillah, being a scholar, just, what's the best way to put this?
To be perfect.
In a sense, yeah.
I think I go out of my way to seem imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm always, and maybe that's just my trauma, right? Like I think the biggest regret of my life, and I mentioned this on Twitter as well, is that I was speaking to a sister, and this is like back before I was a graduate. I was super passionate. I was like, you know what you see on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I think I was so harsh that she ended up leaving Islam in that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that trauma of it, it's still haunting me.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, she's Muslim now.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that it's very, so for me, the way I deal with it is I'm always lowering the bar for myself where people know I'm flawed. I'll make the corniest jokes, you know, for some reason to me, that's lowering the bar. Mm-hmm. But you know, like I want to be a human. I don't want to be a symbol of anything.
Yeah.
But I did want to discuss today about like the two philosophies of technology.
Mm-hmm.
And with that is, you see, technology, it can do really great things and it can impair us. And there's two philosophies when it comes to it. The first philosophy is that we should use technology to enhance us as people. Mm-hmm. So for example, if you are not able to study where you are, you can take online classes and then study from scholars from all over the world, right? Or if you are going for a drive, you can include an audiobook in there to increase your knowledge. Yeah. Or, you know, if you can't see, you can put a telescope to help you see. So it enhances who you are as a human being. Yeah. That's one philosophy. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the one we should adopt.
Definitely.
The second philosophy that we should avoid is that technology then starts impairing us or replacing us. Yeah. So for example, a lot of us, because we have that online interaction, we neglect our families, you know, or we neglect our friends. And we feel like the online interaction is enough to replace the personal human beings. Yeah. Or for example, you know, a lot of guys, they would replace pornography with actual relationships and actual people. Mm-hmm. And I'm really worried about like VR pornography, by the way, because of this. I feel like the more it advances, the less, I mean, I'm sure you know about this. Like a lot of guys are very dependent on this for this. Mm-hmm. Or for example, you know, I'm in the online institute business. That's a wrong word, but I have an online institute. Mm-hmm. So this is something that we actively work towards, is because I feel like, so for example, I was approached by someone with an investment to create an online platform for little kids. Yeah. And their platform was like, you have pre-recorded videos and the kids will just watch it and they'll finish. And I was totally against it.
Yeah.
Because I said, children especially, they need an environment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very much against taking online classes outside of Corona, right?
Yeah.
For kids, and especially pre-recorded videos.
Yeah.
I really feel like, because if parents are using it as a supplement, that's great.
Yeah.
But we know what's going to happen. If we have a set online platform, parents will pull their kids out of the masjid, and they will supplement it with this online thing. So for us, having online classes are very similar to what you and I are doing right now. What we decided is, if you're going to go online, we're cutting a lot of costs. We don't need to rent a building, all that. Yeah. And we'll maximize that in having a maximum of 8 students per teacher, having a TA that marks everything that the students do, having live classes, not online classes, having a lot of interaction. So the idea is maximizing the good of technology without letting it replace us or impair us, which I think a lot of us are doing. We're spending quality time in passive entertainment with our spouses, watching something, and that is replacing quality time with our families or with ourselves. Like, we're using calculators and we're not able to mathematically, do arithmetic in our mind. So we should maximize the first, where we use it to enhance ourselves, and we should minimize the second. The problem is most technologies have a bit of both, and we have to learn, especially social media, we have to learn how to maximize the first and not the second. And that's why I think we can go into the 3 things that we wanted to discuss, which is the 3 harms of social media that we wanted to focus on, and how can we maximize or minimize them, The first harm was focus. Like, when you're on social media, because the culture of social media, and they've done this, like there's a book called Zapt. It's not a great book, but it talks about this really well. How social media is always trying to give you a dopamine boost, right? And because of that, you get used to your senses always being aroused. So when you are in Salah, for example, or where you're with your family, you're not getting that ping, ping, ping. And you lose focus. Or you always have it with you and you lose focus. So I guess I have a few things that I do to help minimize this. How are you not on Twitter all day? I'm sure you have a way bigger following than I do. I'm sure people are messaging you all the time and notification.
So honestly, my screen time is disgusting. If I had to be brutally honest, disgusting. I think actively maybe 16 hours.
Whoa. I thought I was bad. I'm at 5 hours or something.
You're 5 hours. I'm on 16 hours at the moment. It's because I know I can get off of it, and I have deactivated in the past because of that reason. But it's just so tempting because it sits there and it's looking at you. It's like, use me.
Okay, so can I give you a practical? Okay, so maybe we can make you a test subject. Well, I'm my first test subject, and I've been using a few things, and I think everyone at home should write these down, because trust me, it's after a lot of experimentation, right? So one thing is, you have to make a mindset of yourself not to multitask. And a really good method for this is the Getting Things Done method by David Allen. So Getting Things Done is a book he wrote. What David Allen does is he goes to CEOs and gets them organized. So the idea is you get organized. So while you are present, like right now, you and I are in a conversation, I'm not thinking about what I have to do after this because my day is organized, right? So that, and I've read so many self-help books. The nutshell of most of them is they teach you how to be present in the moment. Because if you can be present in the moment, you can come up with great discoveries. You can, think. And you can build great relationships. So the Getting Things Done method, I think, what you need to do is we need to all stop multitasking. And we see this in the life of the Prophet ﷺ as well. When the Prophet ﷺ, we see in a hadith of Shama'il Tirmidhi, when he would turn to a person, he wouldn't just you and I, if I'm sitting here and you come and hey, assalamu alaikum. He would turn his entire body to a person and he would hold their hand until that person takes their hand back. Complete focus. You and I, addicts, Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, multitasking. There you go. Without a
And
doubt.
then not only that, if you look at salah, you
Yeah.
see, so earlier I spoke about maximizing stimulus.
Mhm.
Islam is almost the exact opposite of that. In salah, you're not allowed to look here and there, so you're minimizing that.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to speak, you're minimizing that. You're not allowed to move.
Mhm.
It's the exact opposite of that.
Mhm.
And that's why a lot of people, they feel anxiety during salah, because in this culture, this is the only time when they're still.
Mhm.
This is the only time, because when they're driving, they're listening to music. When they're walking, they're listening to music. This is the only time that their thoughts catch up to them, so they feel anxious when salah time.
Can I give an like? I used to suffer from this quite a lot as well. It would be a moment where it's time for example, Maghrib or Isha, and I would be praying, and I've got my phone on the side as well, and I just subconsciously I know that my phone's there, my phone's pinging away, and astaghfirullah, like it shouldn't be a case where your attention gets derived towards the phone. But
I mean, how many of us check our phone before the sunnah?
Oh no, all the time. SubhanAllah, I shouldn't even be saying
Yeah.
that, but it's so common now.
Yeah,
It's so
very,
common.
very common.
And even like after I'm done praying, I would usually give my adhkar, but there's been moments where I've gotten up from the prayer mat, checked my phone for like a good 10-15 minutes, and then sat back down and give my adhkar. And it's those little moments that it just proves to us how distracted are we, and how much has social media walled us into this life.
Scholars say that that adhkar after the salah, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
The reason why they have such a big reward, that your sins are forgiven,
Yeah,
is because while we're in salah, shaitan is doing everything to get us afterwards. If a person can retain themselves and sit down and do the adhkar, it's that great.
Yeah.
So one thing is that, like, creating a mindset of not multitasking. But then there's also steps you can take. So right now what I'm doing is every morning, so I do the getting things done method, which requires you to get organized for the day. So every morning I get up and I go through all my mailboxes, I answer all my questions.
Yeah.
And then now this is the hope. I'm not perfect on this, but I'm trying.
Yeah.
I set up my tweets on buffer. So what that does is it publishes tweets later on, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So then I use this app called Off Time Pro. It's like $5 or something.
Mhm.
And what it does is I shut off all my social media apps from my phone, and I make it non-cancelable, so I can't cancel it.
Mhm.
So right now I had to research something on Instagram about our discussion. I couldn't do it because Off Time won't let me. I mean, there is a small loophole. I'm not going to teach it to you guys though.
Okay.
But Off Time won't let me.
Yeah.
And then on my browsers, I use an extension called Stay Focused.
Mhm.
So in an ideal day, I'll spend the morning going through my social media, answering everybody, and then I'll turn on Off Time for the rest of the day on my phone.
Yeah.
And then on my browsers, I have Stay Focused on nuclear mode. So nuclear mode is just turn it on for whatever hours you've left.
Yeah.
And then the thing is, I'm sure you guys can all come up with loopholes. You can download a new browser or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But we're not animals to the sense that, we need to be chained. We just need a little bit of a slap on the wrist. Like, hey, remember, you're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
So Off Time Pro, I would really recommend. And like I said, I don't know if you can like make a list or something when we post this, because there's so much to do this.
Yeah.
Just stay focused. Okay, now here's a thing which I think is fard. Okay, this is fard. Turn off notifications on all social media apps. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because, so if you look at the book Zucked, or if you look at the book Digital Minimalism, or there's a gazillion books on this, right?
Yeah.
The reason how they grab you is notifications.
Yeah.
Like Facebook didn't become this huge empire until they invented the like button. The like button changed everything for them.
Everything, yeah.
So it's the notifications that are the dopamine boost. And I'm telling you this. I'm going to ask you this tomorrow, Hanan.
Yeah, of course.
Notifications need to be turned off.
Yeah.
Like everything else is nothing. This is fun.
Yeah. Twitter I have, but
no. You got to turn it off. I'm telling you this.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Now you're feeling
a lot right now.
how my students feel like.
No, it's fine. I will, I promise.
Inshallah.
For one day. Did you say for one day or just?
No, I said period. Okay, fine. Try it for a week. Let me know how it goes.
Okay. Inshallah. I'll do that.
Inshallah. So that's what I've got for focus. Do you want to add something to it before we move to the second point?
In that sense, I feel like your level of Iman will always be a struggle. I'll be honest with you, in my moments of low, I've realized how difficult it becomes to focus. And it's always been, how can I bring myself back up to that position where alhamdulillah, my Iman is high and I'm easily able to focus? Do you have like any sort of tips that you can advise?
Here's the thing, right? I really think it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
So before I got a BlackBerry, that was my main concern. My concern was I'm not able to focus in Salah anymore. And that was really concerning for me because it was something that I didn't struggle with before. So I think our social media addiction actually gets in the way of that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. You have to manage it somehow.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, I think if you read the book Humility in Prayer by Ibn Rajab, I know it sounds like, oh, I'm asking him for a solution and he's giving me a book.
Yeah.
I really think it will give you that boost that you need right now.
Of course.
And obviously, with Salah, you should learn the meaning. I mean, I'm hoping to make a course on this.
Yeah.
Well, but there's a lot we can do on this. But multitasking actually kills us. Like, we have to get out of the habit of multitasking.
Multitasking, yeah. I think life just becomes a lot easier when you take each individual task for itself and you put all your effort into that one task. It feels a lot more bliss. I've come to realization of that as well.
Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, so second thing is purifying our gaze, right? Yeah. I think especially, so I used to think this was only for guys, mainly. Yeah. But I do think for sisters, it's a very different effect. So for guys, it's the lust, right? For sisters, I feel like it's not healthy because I feel like, at least Muslim guys, a lot of them understand that it's wrong for them to follow all these models. But I think it's very normalized for sisters to follow all these models. And I don't think it's healthy for a person to always be looking at these gorgeous people. Yeah. Alhamdulillah in Islam.
As a person, you start comparing.
Yeah, you start comparing. And in Islam, the idea is in the dunya, you look at people who are below you so you can be thankful. And in Islam, we have this understanding that, if you control your gaze and you stay away from a lot of these modern day challenges, you can find almost any woman attractive. And I experienced this when I was in South Africa, studying in an all-male school, right? So, but the problem is right now we've so sexualized the culture where no one feels beautiful enough. Yeah. But in Islam, what does the Prophet ﷺ teach us? When you look in the mirror, you say, Allahumma anta hassanta khalqi fahassin khuluqi. Oh Allah, you made my external self beautiful, so make my internal self beautiful as well. But nowadays, when we look in the mirror, a lot of us are not happy, right? But let's talk about the brothers, because I feel like, that's what our scope should be in this discussion.
I think in that being said as well, I feel as if in regards to, I'm not gonna say it probably does, but when a lot of sisters say that they look for something in specific from their spouse, for example, I'm just gonna say like he has to be a certain height, 6 foot.
You have to wear your clothes.
I feel as if that personally, for some brothers, that makes them think, wow, is that what every female is looking for, a 6 foot man?
I think a lot of guys are like that too, right? I think guys are more probably like that than girls are. Oh, I think you can be a moderately attractive guy and you can find almost any spouse. But guys will specifically look for a hot girl, right? By the way, this is another way that I think I lower the bar for myself, is I use words like this. But so purifying our gaze. So for this, I downloaded an extension called Tahir. Okay. However, I'm having a really hard time with it. And I don't think it's something that I am able to retain. But what it does is you download it on an extension. So you only use Twitter and stuff from your browser, which I have been doing for a long time. Recently, I downloaded the apps, but I turned the notifications off. But what the browser does is with Tahir, you can turn off all pictures. And then when you want to see a picture, you can press a button and that picture will be shown.
Is that all media, even on Twitter and Facebook?
So anything on your browser. So if you're using Tahir, you would not download the apps. You would just log in from your Chrome browser or whatever. So Well, actually, sorry, you can't use it on your phone. It's only on the computer.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
But the thing is, I think it's a little bit tough for me to stick to. So I've been trying a few other things. I think with social media, the biggest thing is who you follow, right?
Yeah, without a doubt.
I think being on Muslim Twitter is actually pretty good because most people don't post stuff like this. I think the bigger challenge is Instagram. Because in Instagram, you have two main challenges.
Yeah.
The first challenge is the explore page. And the second challenge is meme pages, because your friends are definitely going to send you memes and they're going to have a stupid private account.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to follow that page and then all their media is exposed to you. And normally, for me personally, that's the struggle. So now what I started doing is that you can mute the meme page so it doesn't show up on your feed. But when your friend sends you something, you can still see it, right? And the second thing is the explore page.
Yeah.
So I spent like 10 minutes yesterday because nowadays TikTok is blowing over. And honestly, I don't think a lot of the TikTok material is healthy for myself.
No. Yeah.
I think a lot of it is very sexualized. So what I started doing is anytime I would see even something like remotely inappropriate, there's 3 dots on the post. So you click on that and you click not interested. And I did that for like 10 minutes. And that like cleaned up my explore page a lot.
Okay.
So I think number one, when it comes to purifying our gaze, Tahir app, if you have it, go for it.
Yeah.
Number 2, for Instagram, for meme pages, mute them. Or anyone who's inappropriate, you can mute them. So if you have colleagues who post stuff like this, you can mute them.
Yeah.
And number 3, not interested on the explore page.
Yeah.
And number 4, it's all about who you follow. And I think that really is what changes. Like our Twitter feed is very different than someone who's like in a very different circle, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. I can honestly vouch for that because there has been situations where I think I clarified this once as well. I said like, if you do tend to bring any sort of haram, like maybe I was a bit harsh in that sense, but I said like, please don't take it in the wrong way. I will like block you and unfollow you.
I think for me, what I struggle with that is my goal of coming on Twitter was not to interact with religious people. And I honestly feel like that's all I'm doing these days. Like a lot of my followers are already in the Alim program or they're very religious. And I don't like being in that bubble because I feel like I'm here. Like I could do that in my classes. I could do that in my masjid.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm here for non-religious people to have access to somebody. And there have been times where I've like, for example, liked someone's post or interacted with someone. And, you know, Twitter brothers, mashallah, just kind of just jumped on that and like, oh, look at you, you're retweeting this. And that's embarrassing for the person too, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, I personally feel like, at least, you know, and I made it very clear, I want to interact with people who are not religious. And that's gonna be something that a lot of people don't like. And I understand if they like mute me or whatever. But personally, I've had to do that because, like I said, if I wanted to engage with religious people, I could have just stayed in the mosque.
Yeah, because I feel like when you're probably interacting with the individuals who aren't religious, it gives you that new perspective that you would never see, and like you're probably getting questions that.
Oh yeah, like
your eye to certain.
Like, you know, one time I was sitting on the bus.
Yeah.
And a group of girls came, and they were like very, very, you know, immodestly dressed, tattoos, all that. And then they're talking about our tattoos haram. And I was like, so I'm literally reading a book, and it was like, they're all sitting there. And I'm like, can I interject here? Because I'm like a scholar.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they started following me on social media and whatever. And I was just like, okay, every time I would like something of theirs or you know, engage with them. And once again, the intention is literally because these people are Muslims and a lot of them are murtads.
Yeah.
Right? It's to kind of give them that, because a lot of people leave Islam not because they know Islam, it's because they feel like it's so different than what their lifestyle is or their mindset is.
Without doubt,
so being accessible for me has been everything. So I'm just putting a disclaimer for anyone following me. That's the reason there. Right. So do you have any other tips for purifying the gaze or? Oh, another thing is I actually feel that every single brother needs to have a porn blocker on their devices.
Sorry, it's a porn blocker.
Yeah, because I feel like this is a fitna that can get anyone at any time.
Without a doubt. I feel like mentally it plays a big role on you and you as a person, because stuff like this thing can become an addiction to a certain...
For sure. And I think people really undermine it. Like they don't take it seriously enough. Like Game of Thrones is a very common thing that people talk about and normalize, but it's sexual, very, very sexual, right? Yeah. So the thing is, I really think we need to be, so here's another thing, right? When it comes to controlling our desires and limiting ourselves, there are several steps that we can take. And I feel like in the West, we only resort to one of them. But when it comes to, especially when it comes to lust, when it comes to everything else, we take all the other steps. So there's a really good book, it's called The Marshmallow Test. Or there's another really good book called Willpower. Or there's another really good book called The Power of Habit. And what they'll tell you is that when you want to stop something, like for example, let's take a neutral situation, like someone is trying to diet and they don't want to eat this food. Yeah. You can't just keep the food in front of your face and be like, oh, I'm not going to eat it, right? You have to have other pressures in place. If you're a cigarette smoker, you got to get rid of the cigarettes. You got to put in other methods to protect yourself. So I think when it comes to lust, brothers have to be very much open with ourselves. Because what you and I do, especially in the West, is we put ourselves in these situations. A lot of guys go over girls' houses one-on-one, or they have phone calls in the late nights, or they're Snapchatting and they're sending pictures. And then the thing is, you're like flirting with the line, right? And you're expecting like, for example, you don't have any societal pressure stopping you. You don't have any like physical pressure, like I said, like a porn blocker stopping you. You only leave yourself to the last defense, which is you're not going to eat the cookie, right? I mean, that's a bad way of wording it, but maybe we'll get hate for it. But my point is, we can't leave ourselves to the last resort. We have to take other steps. So I think every single guy needs to have a porn blocker. Maybe like Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, in his very old age, like, he would make dua to Allah, oh Allah, protect me from zina, from adultery, from fornication. And people will be like, you're an old man. And he's like, oh, this is the one thing I can't. And I really think we shouldn't play around with it. Like, I feel like there's a really good book for females, and I wish there was an equivalent great book for males called A Return to Modesty. And one chapter in it, she discusses, there's a lot I'm throwing out there today. We're gonna like save it. I'm gonna add info. I'm gonna try to add like links and so on too. We gotta put like save all this for other talks too. Because I just used up every single book I ever read. So A Return to Modesty. It talks about how our culture is very sexualized, but at the same time, it's not sexualized. So for example, back in the day, a guy would control his gaze because he would feel fear for himself to cultivate lust. But we're like, no, I can look at that. I can look at girls. I can watch this show. I'm mature enough. Or girls back in the day would feel immodest dressing a certain way. But now the same thing it's not considered sexual enough because our culture has just raised the bar for sexuality. So what I'm saying is that when we return to modesty, it actually helps with passion and intimacy within the marriage as well. But we have to take other steps. We can't just leave it to willpower. Psychologically, that's a bad bet. And I feel like guys and girls in the West, we do this so much. We're just hanging out. We don't even touch. Right? Or we're just gonna be engaged for 3 years. Right? Or like I think a lot of Pakistani parents, they get their son married, and they think they're not doing anything for the next 2 years.
Nah, that's not really the case with them. No, there's definitely truth to it. And also like it's a matter of how I feel as if the hijab is now
I think you gotta be careful the way you word it. You're on thin ice here.
Oh no, I was just gonna mention like I feel as if the hijab is become something that a lot of brothers fetishize in that sense. I feel like that really needs to be touched on, because I see it a lot sometimes. You probably see it a lot, and sometimes there's brothers that would reply back to a sister's picture saying hijabis are this and that, like they're so beautiful.
You know, I was really concerned. When we were growing up, there were two nasheeds that kind of did this.
Mhm.
There was a nasheed, I don't want to mention the group, I don't want to cause drama, but really the lyrics went, Assalamu alaikum, how are you doing? She kept on going, but I couldn't tell. She left a mark on me.
Mhm.
And it's all about like how he sees this hijabi girl and she leaves a mark in his heart compared to no other woman on earth. And then there was a spoken word piece by a poet, once again, not trying to cause drama. I really like these guys, by the way. And he was literally a poem about a non-Muslim man seeing a Muslima and that leaving a whole different mark on his heart. The ending like, shh, I'm just a Muslima. You know, like it was, and I felt it weird how no one is kind of having a problem with this. But the thing is, definitely, it is fetishized. And the hijab has become this huge symbol. And I feel like it can't bear the burden. People with the hijab are struggling because we put too much burden on this one symbol. And it's not ideal for us as a community, but that's perhaps a whole different episode.
Inshallah.
Okay, last thing, and I know we've gone way over time. Well, I think it's fine. I'm enjoying this. Alhamdulillah. Yeah. The last thing is, how do we reduce time on social media? Because I feel like you're at 16 hours, I'm at 6 hours. None of it's ideal. And the thing I'm going to say is to go back to what I said about Off Time Pro. So that way it just shuts off your phone on those apps and you can't use it. So for example, let me show it to you. I don't know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
So I'm going to click on Facebook. What happened?
It just clicked you back off.
Yeah. Hold on. It's not even letting me scroll. Like you got to let that. It says, enjoy your off time. So you can't click on your apps, the ones that you've selected.
It's really good though, and I think I'm going to download that tonight.
Yeah, and you can have settings like, for example, you have to turn it on for like a few minutes or whatever. But the way I like it is, you can cancel it. Doesn't matter what you do. Right.
Do you feel as if like all that time that you used to consume yourself with on social media, you've been able to manage, like use it more effectively?
I'm struggling at the moment, but there have been times where I've been able to do that. So for example, like when I'm in school, I have free periods, right? Without off time, it was hell. Because the thing with me is, and I'm sure you do this as well, I can classify social media under work. So, you know, I can always justify it. Like, oh yeah, I'm doing work on social media. And that's why I think for people like you who are like, you know, serious about it, you should get an app like Hootsuite, HOOTSUITE. What that does is you can still post stuff on social media without going on the Twitter app, because going on that app is hell. Right? Hootsuite is actually really good, but you only get 3 accounts with it, and it's not good. Like, I need more accounts. Okay. So last thing was, how do you retain time? And in this, I think this is the main, I mentioned a lot of things, but I want to leave everyone kind of with this, and I want you to join me in this too if you can. Okay. So there's an app called Habitica, HABITICA. What that does is, and once again, they're not paying us for this, unfortunately, is that you have a character. So this is my character, right? And he's got 39 health at the moment, and he's level 9. So you can make like your daily goals. So for example, in my daily goals, I have to read Yasin in the morning. I have to clean my cat's litter. I have to read for an hour. I have to go for a walk. So these are my daily goals, right? If I don't do them every day, at the end of the day, my guy loses health.
So how does the app become aware that you've done it or not?
Oh, you have to do it yourself. So it's kind of like how in the pious of the past, a lot of times they'll take account of themselves every night. So it's become like a regular activity for me, because you see, I'm addicted to social media, so I want that dopamine boost. So I'm trying to get to level 10, right? I also don't want to die before I get to level 10. So in that, you can create habits for yourself, things that you're working on. So for example, let's say someone's addicted to porn, they can punish themselves every time they watch it, so they'll lose health. What I'm really interested today in this podcast is that you can make a party Okay, and I made a party called Muslim Goals. I'm not sure if you can find it on the search. If you can, just message me or Hanan on the browser with your username.
I'll post the link for it as well if people can
Yeah.
join.
What I'm saying is, they have to send us their username on Twitter to me and you, or just me. I don't know. And then I can add them to the party. The party works like this. So right now, my party is fighting a monster called the basilisk. Every time I do a task, it hurts the monster. If I don't do a task, the monster will hurt all of us. So we can hold each other accountable.
Okay.
Right? So I think that's a great way for all of us to, and it's not like a very gamey, I think I'm making it sound really cool. It's not as cool as it sounds, but you can still hold yourself accountable on this app. Habitica, they're not paying us, unfortunately.
Maybe one day.
But Hanan's gonna work on that sponsorship deal.
One day. No, I think Smala, it would be amazing for like a bunch of us to be in that group and just, you know, work towards the goals that inshallah we want to see.
And the thing is that you can keep, so I looked into a lot of apps for this before I downloaded it. Other apps have a 5 habit limit. I don't know of another app that doesn't. This has an unlimited limit. Once again, not paying us. You can put a to-do list. You can put habits. So for example, if you look at mine, you see which one is red, like brown. What does it say?
I can't clearly see.
It says go for a walk. I have not done that in like a week. So it's like brown, as opposed to reading my Yasin. You know, it's blue. Right? Or like if you look at my habits, so if I clear out my inbox every morning, I get points. You know, if I cut the grass, I get points. If I wash dishes, I get points. So it kind of, it's an interesting way to move forward. And I feel like something like this gets really boring unless you have a community.
Inshallah, maybe we can get a few people on there, and we'll just.
Well, I've got you on it, right?
Yeah, maybe. No, I'll be on there. I'm not messing with you. I'll be on there, inshallah. No, definitely. That being said, I feel as if when people say they're gonna take an alleged break from social media, it is good for you to a certain degree, because I feel like once you're back, you're back.
I feel like no. I feel like when you taste the benefits of it, it opens your eyes up to what you're losing. So I do think there's benefit of taking a break, and that's what digital minimalism will teach you. One last really good book I wanted to mention, I didn't get a chance to do it. Essentialism, the disciplined pursuit of less.
Okay.
And if you want to look at all these books, they're on my Instagram, so I'll plug that in too.
I'm just gonna post your Instagram link for everyone to inshallah just.
Okay, sounds good.
Sweet. But yeah, alhamdulillah. I honestly feel as if when I have deactivated and I have taken that break, it's always been a means of wanting to come back straight away. And it's I can honestly say it's a really difficult challenge to stay off social media for a good period of time. I don't know, maybe if you have discipline, it will be a lot easier for you, but
I don't think it's about discipline. I think it's about putting those measures in check. So if you don't keep your phone on you, right, it's a lot easier than, like, if you leave your phone at home, then at least you're good for Corona. But outside of Corona, you're good for 8 hours. You don't have to look into it. Or one thing I started doing is, now please don't rob my car, but when I go to the masjid, I try to leave my phone in the car. So that way, when I'm in the masjid, I'm like, okay, I'm focused. Because I also have that really bad habit that I'm trying to quit. Yeah.
So no, that's really good, mashallah. I make dua that inshallah one day I could get to that stage where I could leave the house without my phone, but
or you can leave it in the car at least. I mean, that's the least you can do.
Yeah. And then I return back, my phone's gone and my car's gone. But honestly, I think alhamdulillah we've managed to cover
a lot. I'm really surprised actually. I did not think this would go this long. We were actually making fun of long podcasts when you started this.
Well, I apologize. There's been technical issues that I've been dealing with, and
no, what I'm saying is this was really nice that it went long, but I feel like we put a lot in there.
Yes, I think I'm just gonna post this as the episode.
Yeah.
Episode. I don't even want to break it down.
Yeah, I agree. Let's do it, inshallah.
Obviously, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you as our very first guest, and I couldn't ask for anyone better, subhanAllah.
Jazakallah khairan, man.
Honestly, inshallah, make the wall that you return, and I would love to have you on more episodes because I know for a fact we can talk about so much, inshallah. And
I really like the vibe of this. I think you're a really good host, mashallah.
Jazakallah khairan, but I'm still nervous. I don't know why. Inshallah, maybe a few podcasts in, I'll get you.
Inshallah.
But yeah, honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Take care.
Inshallah, do you want to post quickly mention all your institutions and?
Oh well, I think I
know you have a
want to
book
talk about Mishka Institute, and that's the one that I'm going to focus on.
Inshallah.
It's because Mishka Institute, I feel like for the Twitter community, it's the one that is the best because it's online classes, and we really believe in like focused online classes.
Yeah.
So our main course is the 3-year Arabic program, which is starting in September. And I honestly feel like this is the year where it's going to be sold out because we only have 16 seats, meaning 2 classes of 8.
Yeah.
And before we even marketed it this year, which is probably going to be next week, we already have 5 seats booked. So if people are interested in that, I really think they should book if they're in North America or South America. Only because I feel like people from all over the world, they commit, but because it's weekend mornings for us, it's weekend evenings for you guys, and people are not able to sustain that commitment. But if they can sustain it, they're welcome to message me on the side, and maybe we can figure something out for them.
I'll definitely be posting up the links for all of this as well, inshallah.
Sounds good. Jazakallah khairan.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Inshallah, our next episode with you, if you have any certain topics, because I know you had that certain.
Well, I have quite a few topics, but I guess we just stop recording and then we can discuss those.
We'll discuss that after, inshallah. Once again, absolute pleasure, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please do give any constructive criticism or feedback of what can be changed, what can be improved, and yeah, that's all from me and Sheikh today.
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
There you go.